Okay. I think we're recording. We're recording. All right. Today we're going to talk about two things. But the first one we're going to start with is about giving your opinion when your client asks for your opinion. Our natural inclination as human beings is to get warm and fuzzy when people say, "What do you think?" Oh, I can't wait to tell you what I think about so many things. Where do you want to start? Oh, a specific topic? Okay, well, that limits me. But okay, that's helpful. At least I've got some direction. But seriously, how do you handle that in our business, knowing that more than anything, we have to keep in our minds that we stay in our lanes? So, who wants to give an example of, let's start with the top left square. We'll pretend we're on Hollywood Squares. Nate, give me an example of someone asking for your opinion.
So, what do you think about granite countertops for resale value?
Okay, pretty vague, which is how I kind of respond to that. Versus what? Quartz? Laminate?
Concrete.
Right? Wood? Butcher block?
Formica.
There you go. That's the word I was looking for.
Linoleum.
Yeah. Tile? Oh, God, tile. Tile countertops. Oh, my God. The crevices with the, you know what I'm talking about? Oh, my God, it's just terrible.
Right, but that's the thing. I mean, I guess you're not really addressing like what's the right answer. I mean,
So are you talking, so give us a little more perspective so we can be helpful. Are you talking to a buyer or a seller?
buyer. So what's your opinion on granite countertops? Are they good for resale value, or is there something else that is better?
I think it all. I would say that's what I would say. If somebody asked me that, I'd say, well, it's going to depend on a lot of factors. Depends on where you live. Depends on where the home is. Depends on what you're using it for. If you have granite countertops in your wood shop, I don't think they're really going to impact things. If you have granite countertops in your kitchen and you're in North Carolina, sure, a lot of people like that. But there's some folks who don't. It's going to really depend on what do you want. Do you like granite countertops? I would just be vague on it, and I'd try to put it back on them.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do.
I feel like it's easier to answer that question for a buyer because you can put it back on them. But if somebody's asking you that question because they're going to sell their house and they say, hey, do you think I need to redo my kitchen and put granite countertops? I want to list my house in a couple months. Is that going to increase the value? That's a different question.
Absolutely.
And I was hoping somebody would say that because that was a point, but that's valid for both buyer and seller, because what I would say is, well, you know what, looking at other comps in this neighborhood, they're common or they're uncommon. So if you're looking at being a seller and selling, well, if all the other homes don't have granite and you're looking at comps, you're not going to worry about putting in granite probably, because you're probably not going to get dollar for dollar back. Now, you could do it to stand out if you want to, but then you run the risk of, over improving or, again, not getting the money back that you put into it. For buyers, I would say, you know what? Most buyers I work with are looking for some sort of solid surface countertop these days. So, yeah, it's definitely a preference, but then, like Charles alluded to, it's definitely about the neighborhood. Looking at the comps in this neighborhood, most don't have it. And that just probably has to do more with price point than anything. Doesn't mean you couldn't put them in. If you want to be here for several years, I don't think it would be a bad investment.
I think too, though, kind of going back to what you were saying, Doug, and also on the buyer side, it's kind of one of those things too where you can say, well, it depends like what your motivation is in selling the house. Like if you are looking to have it, jump out at somebody, it might help to sell the house quicker. But like you said, it's not dollar for dollar. So.
Right.
I would want to take the emotion out of it though, and just stick to facts on it. Because that's like what I that conversation I have with people on anything related to real estate is, look, we do it based on, I'll give you everything based on the facts, not the emotion. Because I want them to be the emotion side, and then me to just be there as this is the comps, this is what the value is, this is what this is. Now, what do you think of this color? And put it back on them because they're the emotion ones.
I think our job is to kind of frame it and then again, give them the information to make an informed decision, right? But that's a good question.
Who's had the clients that try to back you into, basically this is what I'm paying you for without saying it. They really like.
I mean, and if you get to that point, I'm happy to qualify something. I'll be like, what, but you want my opinion? Of course, granite countertops. But I would expect the house to cost more if it had granite countertops in it than it does. If you're working with a buyer, something like that.
Right.
Tiffany and Stephanie are making notes over there, so I'm sure they've got a list of great topics to share. So who wants to go first between you two?
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
What do you think I should offer for due diligence and earnest money?
Okay. That's a great, I'll give you mine because mine are standard. No less than $500, 1% on the earnest money.
I'll say due diligence is usually between $500 and $1,000, and earnest money 1%. If you're in multiples, obviously you want to go higher on the due diligence.
Sometimes, Doug, do you edit that 500 at all when you have you're shopping around the 200,000 price point instead of higher? Because I have a lot of young, at least around here, we have a lot of young military families. And I think sometimes, do you run into that? 500 sometimes is hard.
I will be honest, with all of the transactions I've done this year, I've gotten away with 200
Yeah.
due diligence. We've never offered 500.
I get that that's high for that market. I would not go below 250.
I've been doing 150.
Here's the thing. You do that, of course you're representing your client the best, but what you also want to do is help them make a decision. And if it doesn't hurt at least a little bit for them to change their mind, then you're really doing them a disservice. And I know that it's their money and everything, but think about all the other money they're spending.
Right.
I wouldn't go below 250.
I usually tell them somewhere between 2 and 500 is what I say. And I'll tell them the more that you can offer, the stronger your offer is.
All right.
That's
And
what
that's a good way to position it. And I know you guys are still seeing it, especially those of you working with sellers. You get these offers with no due diligence.
No due diligence?
None.
That one.
Yeah,
Really?
which is ridiculous. But hey, people figure they can get away with it, right? So it's up to us when we're representing our sellers not to let them get away with it. It's also important that we educate our buyers as to why it's important that a serious due diligence amount is included in the offer.
Do
So,
you think that
There's a ton of feedback. Can somebody mute themselves?
yeah, I don't know who it is though.
I think it's Felicia. She just jumped on. Felicia, we're talking about giving our opinions on different topics, and the current topic is due diligence and earnest money.
do you think that if you're going to be offering below asking, you should up the due diligence?
Not necessarily. I mean, because below listing is so relative.
Exactly.
It's like when a buyer, and here's another topic we can talk about. Is there any flexibility in this price? I want a deal, versus what?
Yeah.
Well, let's look at the data first and then I'll tell you. But we don't speak with blanket statements like that because it doesn't make sense to do that. And that's something you need to cut off at the very beginning when you're setting expectations with people. You get somebody that you're talking to and the outset is, well, I'm looking for a deal. Well, a deal is relative. We'll talk about it when it comes to that specific property. Boom, cut that shit off at the knees. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up to deal with someone with unrealistic expectations, and then you're going to be running around showing 20 houses and writing up a bunch of offers that don't get accepted. And if you do that, I'll cry for you once. But after that, it's on you because it's your job to set the expectations for how these things are going to play out. So, and I tell you that in the most loving, kind way ever because I want you to get the most out of your time, right? And I want you to help your clients the first time so they have a better experience. They don't get frustrated. But most of the times people get frustrated with the process because we don't do a good enough job of setting expectations at the outset of the relationship. And I'm sure we've all been there and experienced that. And of course it happens when we're younger ages because we want to please everybody. Janine, don't mistake me. This has nothing to do with any specific situation for you. I know sometimes it feels like people are being talked to directly. I'm speaking very generally here. You know, when you first start a relationship out, you want to secure the client, you want to make them happy, you want them to work with you, want them to write an offer. But make sure you don't jeopardize the other 90% of the work you're going to do for them just to make the first 10% easy. Right? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, who's got another?
I always
Oh, go ahead.
feel like he's talking to me, so don't tell them. No, I was just saying, I always feel like you're preaching to me, so don't ever feel singled out. I said, I always feel like you're preaching to me, so don't feel singled out. I was telling Janine, don't feel singled out.
I got you. That's good. Hopefully that means when it resonates with everybody, that's good. You should always feel like I'm talking to you a little bit. I remember that feeling a lot, but that's good. And trust me, the same thing happens to me. It's definitely happened to me. Trust me. All right. Who's got another topic? Let's keep on going down through the Hollywood Square, Stephanie.
I think a common one, definitely for me, is, well, what should I offer? Even after presenting a CMA, it's always, well, what do you think I should offer?
All right. Who wants to script that a little bit? Felicia?
I had this issue with the client. She literally would not stop. She wanted me to give her a specific number. She's like, I'm reliant on you. I need you to tell me what I need to do. I need you to tell me the exact number we should offer. I mean, she just kept on and on. And Josh was with me when I was talking to her, and I was like, I just feel like she's setting me up for failure because she's telling me exactly what I need, what she needs, wants me to tell her exactly what she needs to offer. But if she doesn't get it, then she's going to turn it around on me, and it's going to be my fault.
100%.
So I just told her, you know, you need to decide what is the most you're willing to pay, and if you don't get it, that you did everything you can, and you won't be upset that you lost it at that price.
So that is that's the perfect script, and that's what I would do. But this is what I would also do to take it a step further, because some people are going to keep at you until you get a number.
Yeah.
I'll give them a number. I'll give them a number, but I'm going to qualify it. Okay. In my opinion, I would offer at least this. Now, the reason I don't like to give you a number, I'm just being honest with you. That's what I'm here for. I don't want to give you a number because I don't know that they're going to accept that. But based on my experience, I think that's a good number, right? But you can't hold me to it because I can't guarantee they're going to accept it because I don't know what the seller's expectations are, right? But if you want me to give you a number, here's the number. But this is also what I recommend. And again, we're talking multiple offers specifically. You need to go with the number that hurts the most if you found out somebody else paid that.
They also need to understand that they're not going to know the terms of the other offers as well.
Right. We're not good.
I mean,
That's the way it works.
we weren't even in multiple offers, and she was doing this to me. It was just sometimes those clients, you just have to literally hold their hand the whole entire way. And you'll get that a lot with new buyers because they just don't know. And you have to be sympathetic, but you also have to CYA at the same time.
And that's the thing.
Because they've never gone through it and they do get disappointed, then the only person they have to blame is you because they don't know any better and you're the expert. So there's a really fine line that you have to tread, but it is treadable.
It is. And that's why you really just qualify it. You're like, hey, I'm happy to give you a number. Now, look, if somebody asks me for a number and we're not multiples, I'll give it all damn day. I'll be like, sure that, and here's how I script it. When they try to lowball, I'd be like, you know what? That's probably a little low to start. Or if you think it's going to be 5 less than asking and they want to offer 10, you know what? I feel like that's a good place to start the discussion. So what expectation are you setting? They're not going to accept that.
Right.
I
Or-
always tell them to expect a counter. Like, it's just how it is. No one's going to go with the first offer, so just expect to negotiate. Because a lot of times people just want instant gratification. They want to put in an offer and they want it accepted. But, I mean, no person in their right mind is not going to haggle with you over the price of a house. So,
Right. And so, you know, a lot of buyers' misconception is, well, nobody expects to get list price.
Yeah, right. In this market.
Actually, they do.
Yeah.
You know-
Otherwise, they wouldn't be listing their house.
Also, list price is relative. How's it priced? Right? So that's where you guys really have to make sure that you're taking the time to set the stage, set the expectation, and then explain the data. And look, we all know people still aren't going to listen to you. The best is when somebody's like, well, hey, what should I offer? Well, you know, you go the whole script. Okay. Well, what number? Well, I wouldn't start below X. Okay, well, let's start 5 below that.
I know, right?
But it happens. But
Well, that's-
if you're qualifying it and then it doesn't work out, all you have to do is say, well, remember when we talked about that? And then when that one doesn't work out and you have to make an offer on another house, you'll say, okay, remember last time? Let's do it this way this time.
and you have to tell them, like, you can't offend a seller and they will not negotiate. They'll just decline your offer and then that house is dead.
Yeah, I think it's very important to also say, and that's why, you know, choose your words carefully. Say things like, well, we don't want to start the offer out on the wrong foot, because even if we come to an agreement, it can cause problems during the due diligence process. We know it's priced well. There's no reason to insult anyone.
And I think also too, sometimes with new buyers, at least my guy, if they learn that there's no other offers on the table, that gives them more leeway to lowball. And you have to fix that quickly.
The other, was that helpful?
Yes.
All right, Charles.
Okay. For a idea of like when a client asks you a question, what do you think of this neighborhood? Or
That's
do you think this is a good neighborhood?
That's a good one.
that's the one I get all the time.
Or what do you think of the schools in this neighborhood?
I can tell you that one.
That's easy.
Well, that one's easy. Okay, but what do you think of this neighborhood?
It's great.
Well,
Look
do you
how
think
well
it's a
every,
good-
look
do
at
you
all
think
the
it's a good
yards.
neighborhood? Do you think it's a good neighborhood for my kids to grow up in?
This is how I handle neighborhood questions.
How would I be able to answer that?
This is what I'll say. So, you know what? When it comes to neighborhoods, these are the things I look for. Do people take care of their yards? Do the cars in the driveway or on the curb look like they're in good shape? Are people taking care of things? You know, because I don't know who these people. You're not going to know them either until you move in the neighborhood.
I also suggest that they visit the neighborhood during different times of the day, like in the evening, so they can see, you know, is it loud? Is it rowdy? During, you know, school hours, is there a bunch of weird cars driving through? You know, I just try to tell them, if you have time, like, visit the neighborhood during different times of the day, so you can get a first-hand look of how it is during that time. Because I don't live in that neighborhood, I can't speak for it.
You just got to be careful by not giving too much information, because then people will start that, well, I guess I need a Jacksonville realtor or some bullshit like that, right? So it's just
Now,
about,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
If you know it's not a good area, like I was showing this one client and I knew, like, this is not a safe area. This is where a lot of drugs are. Like, do you tell them you know that? Or do you just say,
No, you can't.
No.
So I had a question like
I
that.
would never tell them there's like a lot of drug activity or, you know, anything like that, because obviously they can find that stuff out by calling the sheriff's department. But I don't know, like, I've been in neighborhoods where I know in Jacksonville that this is not a good place to live. But what I think is not a good place to live might not be what she thinks is a good place to live.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So that's a way to phrase it. Be like, well, you know what? Our definitions of a good neighborhood could be different. What is your definition of a good neighborhood? Oh, well, I want somewhere where I feel like my kids can play outside and be safe and there aren't drug dealers. Well, you know, based on that, I feel like we should probably look over here. Now, see,
Because there's a section of Jacksonville. It's called Myrtlewood, but they call it
Oh,
Myrtlewood.
yeah.
but see, you didn't even say anything about the specific neighborhood, and that's the thing. It's about the way you phrase it. Based on what you
Yeah.
said is important to you, I'm not sure this is the best area. Based on what you said is important to you, I think we should probably look somewhere else.
Yeah.
You never talked about the neighborhood specifically. You never said anything about drugs or schools or demographics or churches or anything. That's the answer.
Right. Yeah.
Tell them no without saying anything specific. Based on what you've told me, I think another area will be a better fit.
Base things off of rumors of other people as well. So I think that's really easy to do. Somebody could say, oh, that neighborhood's terrible when they know nothing about it, but now you think the neighborhood's terrible and we don't have any facts to back it. I think that's kind of hard. But if you know, I had a situation like that one time where I was showing a house to a young military family. They had 2 kids and we'd become, kind of friends. And they wanted to see this house, but in the backyard, I knew like the neighborhood right behind there was like drug city. And I just was flat out. And I was like, I mean, we could see this house, but if you, map or go on the Google satellite image and you look, those trailers back there, I wouldn't want my kids playing in the backyard. And they like looked at it and they were like, yep, nope. And I mean, to me, I'd rather tell them that. I don't know what we're supposed to do in a situation like that, but I just said, you can look at it, tell me if you still want to go, but it's, that area back there is just not the greatest.
I may be wrong, but I think it's a little different with your SOI. I think you can be a little bit more
Well, they weren't my
blunt, right?
They were just a couple that I'd
Oh,
shown
okay.
a few times, and then they had little kids, and I just couldn't, in good faith, put them in a house.
Hold on a second. I need to take this. Y'all keep talking. Hello.
Yeah, I feel like neighborhoods are really subjective, so it's hard to comment on that.
Because like I've got this client that lives in Laurinburg and she wanted to see houses in downtown Wilmington. As soon as we pulled up, she's like, oh my God, this is so much better. I live in the ghetto where I am. So anything's a step up. So like her definition of what's acceptable and where she would live, like that's like great for her compared to what she's coming from. So, you show it and I just make sure I drop a location so you know where I am.
Right?
Yeah. You have to be careful not to comment on certain things, like, not because you said it, Tiffany, but just because, like, trailer parks, you never knew who grew up in a trailer. Like, I grew up in trailers, but
Oh yeah, no.
you don't want to offend someone.
No.
What?
You say, Nate?
I said, we know, Felicia.
Is that a Georgia comment? That's terrible and uncalled for.
Totally.
All right, so
I'm going to contact our HR department.
yeah, that's what email. So this is another thing I was going to say, and of course this is not always applicable, but if you got somebody who's starting out that way, be like, this is what I'd suggest you do. Before we even go see any of these homes that you're interested in, do a drive-by and let me know if you still want to go see them after you check out the neighborhood. Now, if you got somebody coming into town, that's not always possible, unless they come in the day before, which I love. My lady who came in from Phoenix last week, I couldn't see her the first day she got here. So I was like, well, drive by your list and let me know which ones you want to take off. Hell yeah, that cut the list from 12 down to 5.
Yeah, that's so helpful.
That's a good idea.
So when you got people who are talking that way, give them that direction. Say, well, because I know the neighborhood's very important to you, what I'd say is, why don't you go out there after hours, dinner time, and drive around these ones that you're interested in seeing and see if you still like to go see them. That way you get a better fit for what the neighborhood's like before you look at the house. So fall in love with the neighborhood first, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Can you say something like, this one's more centrally located in the city and it's closer to ABC and XYZ as opposed to this over here?
Yeah, as long as ABC and XYZ isn't a particular school or church.
Well, the beach, the university,
Yeah,
the,
of course.
yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Great discussion. All right.
That's tough though. That's a hard one because
Oh,
everybody's
definitely.
situation is very specific and individual.
What about yours, Janine?
My what?
What topic do you have? I know we took the one that you originally brought up. So do you have another one?
Obviously I haven't been doing this very long. What else? I don't have one that comes off the top of my head.
Felicia, do you have one while she's thinking?
What is our subject actually?
What is
Like
our
this objection?
When people ask for opinions on things. So we've talked about due diligence and earnest money. We've talked about neighborhoods. We've talked about price.
Talked about upgrades.
Upgrades. Thank you, Nate. That was too long ago. After like 15 minutes, my short-term memory's gone.
I'm thinking too.
Okay. I mean, I think we've covered the biggest ones.
Yeah. You talk about like opinion when they ask your opinion on like lenders and stuff, or like I guess that's more of them asking you.
Oh, I got one.
Okay.
Due diligence repairs.
Oh, good one.
All right. So this is my script for this always. Always. I'm going to go through and put my suggestions down in the DD request, and I'll send it to you to look at. So y'all look at it too, and let me know if you have any other major items you want to add.
I also tell them if there's a lot of stuff like you want to ask for the bigger things over the smaller things, like the things that are more important. You don't want to like muddle it up with a bunch of things and then they choose 5 small things but leave the 2 big things on the table.
100%.
So if there's a door squeaking, like you handle the door, but pick something that's bigger that needs to be done that, you know, is going to cost more money or you can't do yourself. Because a lot of times they'll say, oh, just put the whole report on there. Well, do you really want to put the nail pop or the cracked grout, or, you know, and they might choose to do that over something more expensive or more important.
So you guys, hopefully, I know you get this, but we just say the same things over and over, right? So it really implants in our heads. Everything we do is about setting expectations. Everything. So it's, again, why it's so important to do that buyer consult before you even start, right? So you have the part where you talk about due diligence and the inspection and how that's going to play out. And it's going to be 20, 30, 40 pages. And that's typical because the home inspection is like a homeowner's manual for your house. And yes, every house is going to have items that need attention. Some big, some small. If any, we want to focus on the big ones, not the small ones. So they don't fix those instead of the big ones. Okay?
And they will every time.
And then 2 weeks later, when you're under contract and get the inspection report back, you can say, hey, remember when we talked about the inspection reports and how they work? And we got the report and there's some bigger things on there and there's some smaller ones. So I'm going to go through and point out the ones that I think you should get addressed. Okay. And I'll send that to you so you can eyeball them. I want you to look at the list too, come up with your own list and let's compare. What edits do you have to the list I sent? Just a reminder, we're going to focus on the big things: safety, livability, roof, foundation, systems, plumbing.
HVAC, yeah. Now, if it's a new build, I'll put everything on there. 'Cause that builder needs to fix it.
100%. But I'll tell you one thing I've noticed more there, but I'm noticing more here. Now the contract language is saying that the builder's not agreeing to fix everything that's in the inspection report. Like they just put a blanket statement out now. And this was Dan Ryan, I think. Because that used to be the case. You'd just be like, I wouldn't even send a DD request. Be like, here's the inspection report. Fix it.
Oh, for the new build?
Yep. And it's not working that way anymore. And then
Well, then all they got to do, all they have to do then is put it on like their 30-day walkthrough or their 1-year walkthrough.
Right. But it's usually, I notice it more working with you guys because it's these smaller, more independent regional builders who are like, yeah, no. Tiffany, remember how much trouble we had with that townhouse that your very first clients bought with like the, whatever the thing was right by the sink that almost messed up closing with your basic white buyer?
Do you know how many houses this girl sold?
Remember the pumpkin discussion? Hold on, I gotta talk to the guy. No pup. No pup. No pup.
Speaking of Felicia, I have my first builder walkthrough at 3:30 today, blue tape walkthrough. They did not get a home inspection because of money, but obviously it comes with a warranty. So we're gonna be very meticulous today.
What builder is it?
Southern Custom Homes, I never heard of them.
I've never worked with them. I don't know. All builders are different. Some are really professional and some are not.
Yeah.
Like Sides, they're so easy to work with.
Who?
Sides.
Oh,
And then Atlantic, they're super easy to work with. But they're the bigger builders.
yeah.
Good pup. You guys get all talked out, or did you just agree to stop talking, like, so the teacher lets us go?
No, we were talking.
I can't hear you. We're not going to talk about foreclosures today just because we've been talking for 50 minutes almost, or 45 minutes now. So we'll have to table that to next week because I know you guys have stuff to do and I do too. Was this helpful?
Yes.
Good. All right. We'll plan to talk about foreclosures next week. What else you guys got? Anything in particular we need to talk about? Let me stop recording real quick. Any housekeeping?